All right, we're recording now. So this is the first one of these. This is going to be a demo, right? This is like our demo episode.
I think so, but if it's, if we knock it out of the park, this is for real.
Yeah. So if people are seeing this right now, we fucking nailed this.
Right.
But if not, this is the test run. But I guess welcome to what should we call this thing? Do we have a name even for this?
Well, you pitched to me D&D.
D&D is good. I think roll the dice with D&D is a pretty cool idea for the name of the show. But just in case you didn't want to go with that, I didn't want to force it upon you. But I guess we're now kind of agreeing that this is the name of the
Oh,
show.
yeah. I mean, I thought you meant you wanted to do a D&D show, Dungeons and Dragons show, and I was in on that as well. I
I
was all
know.
ready for that.
That's why, I love you for a lot of reasons, buddy. But like the fact that you were willing to ride with me when I was like pitching you on a Dungeons and Dragons podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, you got faith. You got faith in this thing.
Well, I was just wondering who was going to be the dungeon master because I just don't want to be.
Yeah, no, and I think Dungeons and Dragons is one of those things that I like to talk about playing again. But every time I actually sit down and think about the logistics involved, I'm like, there's no way I'm ever going to play this thing.
Same with me.
But this is a show where we are going to kind of get to explore our personal record collections and share with each other some of our discoveries along the way that we've made. And, because you are obviously a master record collector yourself. And
Thank you. Thank you.
you
And you are as well. I mean, you have an impressive collection.
I definitely have, like, I didn't lose my virginity until I was 20. So I had a lot of time to just fixate on vinyl. When a lot of people were out there exploring their bodies and exploring life, I was in my room exploring 7 inches of pleasure in the form of records.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I remember being, broke and just obsessing over a $5 record that I was going to get on Friday,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it better still be there.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Oh, there were definitely times where it was like, well, if I just eat pasta with tomato sauce for the whole week, I could completely go down the street and buy this incredibly, at the time, expensive record. But now looking back on it, my gosh, were we getting deals?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's so true. Over time, and I guess this show will prove, um, my taste in vinyl collecting and record buying slowly changed and changed again, and now it's to this thing where I don't even know what I don't know what I'm looking for anymore. I just know when I see it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like I don't really buy that much online. Right now, I should be because that's, I guess, really the only way to get records.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's offered an opportunity to kind of like finally stop and breathe for a second and actually go through my records. You know,
Right. Right.
There's-
Eh,
go on.
well, I'm doing the same, but I'm getting rid of stuff.
Yeah, I know. I got a record from your collection still that I got to pick up that from the pre-lockdown time I put
Yeah.
aside because you know
I should have just given it to you right then and there.
I think I forgot it at your house. I think you
Is that
said,
what it was?
yeah, you're
Yeah.
like, take it with you. And I, you know, forgot it. And now I will have to listen to that Len record when this thing's finally over. I was going to say it, I wasn't going to pretend like I was too cool.
Oh, there's no shame.
No.
I have nothing to hide. I'm proud of my records. Proud of what I'm getting rid of and what comes in and out. I don't care.
And Len is the only group, as we've discussed off air, that can link Mal Havoc to Biz Marquee.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. You're right.
You know?
Yeah, yeah. That's true. Yeah.
It's like the only, like, that's pretty cool. Like, I would say two pioneers in their respective genres linked by a pioneer in the pop genre.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely.
But we're going to be talking each week. I guess we're going to take a record or a series of records, right, and discuss it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I can choose one of the records from Okay, yes, I've chosen a series of records for this debut show, but I'll focus in on one of the records from the series.
I've got a series two to discuss, and yeah, I think I'm going to focus in on one, but I think there's a lot for us to discuss in these records, and I think the thing about these records is we're going to bring it into all of our interests today. It's going to touch on our mutual love of punk rock, and I'm even going to bring in my less love, but you're very much love glam rock into this conversation as well.
Yes, I mean I am a glam rock, LA glam rock fan. No shame, again.
No,
No, nothing. I love it, and I can't wait to talk about it.
yeah, I like no effects, so believe me, there's no shame in this conversation whatsoever. So, shall we move on to? Should we toss a record to decide who goes first?
Absolutely,
Okay,
yeah, I think so.
I have a 45 close at hand that I can just reach over and grab. That will be flippable.
I'm near the books and CDs, so I can flip a book, but
No, I've got this 45 here. This is the band that was George Pettit, myself, Chris O'Toole, who hosts Footnotes with me, and Ian Keogh from Attack in Black. This was our group that we had together. I
wow.
still am sitting on a shit ton of these, so I can spare one for the flip. So do you want B-side or A-side?
I'll choose B-side.
Okay. We got A-side.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go first this time.
All right.
All right, let's start off. I went with, I had a last minute shift because a lot of the artists that I wanted to discuss today in my research turned out to be problematic, putting it mildly. And so
Right.
at the last second, I decided because you're going with a series that I wanted to go with a series too. And I picked the Montreco punk rock series. Now, you probably have seen these 45s over the years because this is the sleeve that it looks like
Right.
normally, right?
I mean, it's vaguely familiar. I can't say that it jumps out at me.
Okay, well, there's 4 records that were put out in this series, and the 4 records are just like the most random assortment of punk records. They did this, and they also did a compilation. But the 4 punk rock records in this series were a Viletones 12-inch, a 12-inch by a Northern Irish punk band called Pretty Boy Floyd and the Gems, and a 12-inch by The Action from Ottawa, which that's the only record that was exclusive. All the rest of these are kind of licensed, and a 12-inch by Venus and the Razor Blades. So it's like 4 records that have absolutely nothing to do with each other, geographically, sonically, like, and I guess they could all loosely be called punk. So normally when you find these records, it's just that generic sleeve that I showed you. These are ones that I've tracked down, and this took me forever to track down, that have the covers. They did like a limited number with actual covers, and so I think it took me about 15 years, I think, before I had them all, in just various places picking them up. The Viletones I've never found with an actual cover. I don't think they ever made one, but I did find one day at Sonic Boom one that someone had made themselves for it.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's like a fan-drawn picture with a little picture of Steve Lucky over here, a.k.a. Nazi Dog.
Right.
Featuring the 3, I don't know, like definitive punk songs of the first wave of Toronto punk.
Right.
On there. And yeah, this for the longest time was the easiest way to find this Viletones record because these, I don't know how many were pressed. I think probably a few because you would see these popping up. The story of Montreco is this was like a sub-label of Montreco Records, same name, that put out all sorts of weird stuff, including the like prog rock band, new wave prog rock band Mobius. They put out like, a lot of French Canadian sort of singer songwriter stuff and disco records and things like that. And according to legend, allegedly, it is a mob front, or it was a mob front. It went out of business a long time ago, so I don't think they're putting out anything soon. But I guess these were just like cash-ins on punk rock, like trying to get in on that trend as it was kind of hitting. And they're amazing. Like the records that they picked are, once again, completely unconnected, but They are all fascinating in their own right. Action were an Ottawa punk band. They claim to be the first Canadian punk band ever, and they say they have recordings from '73 that like predate Teenage Head and all this sort of stuff.
Is that out?
Yeah,
Did
you
they
can
release?
get that. They were interviewed by Steve Perry on Steve Perry's radio show, and it's an incredible interview where the lead singer, I think it was Greg Dick actually who did the interview, is making all sorts of claims, and then the recordings came out, and it's like, I don't know if you would really call it punk, the stuff they were doing super early
Right.
on, but this is an incredible record. TV on the Blink being the standout track on this thing. This is the only record that they ever got out at the time. You see flyers for them and show posters, and they did play Toronto back in the day. I think they might have even played the legendary Crash and Burn Club. The Viletones, who we discussed, Steve Leckie,
Of
infamous,
course.
infamous band. Did you have any run-ins with him ever?
Yes, I'd say maybe twice.
Okay.
Because JC in our band knows him as well before me. But there was one time he came to our show, and he gave me a crystal skull,
What?
which I have. I don't think I've ever told anyone this. And he held it in his hand, in his fist, and he just grabbed my hand and he put it in my hand. He goes, "I give you my power." And I have that in a special box at home.
That is amazing. That is
Yeah.
wild. I've had one time fucked up got the reunited Viletones to play one of our Halloween shows that we used to do.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, and it was like amazing. I was so excited to see them, because I didn't go to any
Yeah.
of the other reunion shows, which I really regret now. And so I was like, getting ready. They get on stage, they all set up, and it was, like kind of like an all-star band of like good players. And they're like, "Where's Steve?" And Steve Leckie had just gone home. He decided he didn't want to play the show and just
Whoa.
didn't tell anyone in the band. So they set up all the gear on stage only to find out that he wasn't going to play. But that was the second time that I really met him. He used to come into the video store I worked at. And then one day showed up with a copy of the first 7-inch and then sent me on a mission to find mushrooms. And it was a very weird trip for a straight edge guy to go on. But
Wow, but you got that story out of it, though.
yeah, and I did get the first Viltone 7-inch that day, like
Okay. So he gave it to you.
in exchange for magic mushrooms.
Right. Oh, wow.
And I was
Wow, that's so cool.
I didn't know anyone. I was like straight edge at that point. I had no idea how to get mushrooms, and like he's asking like, "How do you do these?" I'm like, "How do you not know? You're like the guy from the Viltones."
He asked you how to do them.
Yeah. It was a very surreal moment. Like at first he shows up and he gives me the 7-inch and he's like, "Okay, what I'm going to do for you, if you can complete what I want, it's going to make this look like garbage." Like, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you just gave me the first 7." And she's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You're a mover and shaker. You're a guy who can get shit done, right?" And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. And he's like, "Yeah, you're like the guy, because I got this new band." He starts talking about his new band. So I think he just wants a show, right? So I'm like, "Oh, shit. Yeah, dude, I can help you out. Totally." He's like, "Yeah, because you're a guy who can get shit done." And I'm like, "I guess so." And he's like, "Yeah, like you're the type of guy that if I call at like 9 o'clock and say, I need some magic mushrooms, you could be like, bam, I got magic mushrooms for you." I'm like, "I don't think I could do that." He's like, "Okay, well, I'll see you at 9. Get the magic mushrooms."
Wow.
And
That's great.
I did. So that was my run with Steve. But the one I wanted to talk to you about is, do you know this band at all? Venus and the Razor Blades?
No, I don't. I do not.
This was a band that Kim Fowley put together. The two lead singers, one was 14 and one was 17. They kind of came out at the same time as the Runaways. Like 76 they were put together. Obviously, Kim Fowley is someone who is been kind of exposed for being a real abusive figure in recent years.
Yeah.
So I have never read anything about anyone in this band involving this band, but to be fair, there could be some darkness in this record as well. Ronnie Lee, the guitar player, she actually wrote the Where the Boys Are for the Runaways. Like that actually was their song originally, which became a hit in Japan. Like it was like a gold record for the Runaways at some point. And the drummer on this record is Nikki Beat, who played in the original lineup of LA Guns.
Whoa. That's pretty cool.
He was also in the Germs, and he was also in the Weirdos as well.
Right. Wow.
And then also on this record, I think it was Ronnie Lee. Maybe it's Ronnie Lee. Someone on this record, I'm pretty sure it's Ronnie Lee, also wrote Big City for the Dead Boys. Which,
wow.
Yeah, which on the second record. Which I didn't realize that a lot of the songs on that Dead Boys second record weren't written by them. You know, like between the Rock from the Tomb songs, and I think they do a Stones cover, and this, it's like, wow, that was a record where they were just like, we got nothing. Let's just get some songs.
Yeah, sometimes that's you walk into a studio and you want to walk out of there with something.
Yeah, and they did. I like that Dead Boys second record. A lot of people hate it, but I do enjoy that record. And Pretty Boy Floyd and the Gems were on Rip Off Records, which is the other Northern Ireland punk record label. Like Rip Off Records is always going to be second to Good Vibrations.
Right.
Good Vibrations did the Undertones, did Rudy, did like a lot of the biggest records. And I guess Rip Off Records was kind of considered like a bunch of glam dudes that weren't really part of the scene playing it. This record rips, though. I love this album. Not to be confused with the other Pretty Boy Floyd, who I think is
with the L.A. Pretty Boy Floyd, right?
Exactly. So I knew you'd know that. I think I know them.
Well, I can't remember the guitarist's name now. It escapes me, but from the L.A. Anyways, whatever.
But
wow.
Yeah, but these were the records I kind of wanted to, just hip you to. Next time you see them, this is normally how they come. If you find one with a sleeve, pick it up because that is a find.
So there was only 4 of these in this series, but the label itself had a lot more different kinds of musics.
Yeah.
That they released, right?
Yeah, like not a lot of great stuff in my experience. Like I've picked up a couple other records outside of the series, and it's not really been hitting for me in any sort of way. They also put out a punk compilation LP that I think is just all these 12 inches comped.
Right.
Called Permanent Wave.
Well, what's the deal with it being such heavily Canadian?
I think because it was Montreal, right? And it's just like mobbed up, and they were just like the easiest artists to get. Like the thing I don't know is like it's almost like they just like ran their finger down like a review section in some sort of like trouser press, and they're just like, okay, let's just reach out to these bands, or maybe these were just the bands that wrote back and were like, yeah, sure, you can have the license.
Right.
I get the Action would be the weirdest one to find out because that's the only one where it's like an exclusive record. Like everything else, they probably just licensed the masters for it. But yeah, these things are, they do show up occasionally, and they're still reasonably priced when you find them at record stores here. But they are becoming more and more collectible because I think there were probably 1,000 pressed maybe, but I love the photos too.
They all have a very similar look, and whoever did the vinyl tones kept with the
aesthetic.
The look.
Yeah. That's why I was wondering, is this maybe a prototype for a real cover? That's what I'll like to think, because they also have another version underneath.
Oh, Jesus. That's super cool. That is super cool. Being from Toronto, it's just a cool thing to have. It's, the vinyl tones one especially.
Yeah. No, I think... a friend of mine also gave me Steve Lecky's old American Express card that I have. It's expired, so don't worry. I'm not spending it on anything. But
that's great. And I want to say that Steve has been nothing but kind to our band. So
he's one of the greatest. He's a legend. I'm not. I subsequently have done mushrooms now, and it's awesome. So he was definitely hit me to that too. It's so funny about the vinyl tones though, because when a couple years ago I went to DC on a road trip, like we did a Turned Out a Punk live tour, and the night after we performed, we went to the Discord house, and basically just punished our way in. And Ian we're talking about the vinyl tones, and he's like, we're in the warehouse, and he's like, you got to come into the main house. I'm going to play you something. And he played me a song that was from the first ever Bad Brains show with HR singing, because I don't think they ever played before him though, so this might be the actual legit first Bad Brain show, and they cover "Screaming Fist" by the
Screaming
Baltones.
Fist. I knew that. Did I know that from you? I knew that.
In Henry's book, I think he talks about it too, and like that annotated like
Fanatic.
Fanatic. He talks about it in Fanatic and stuff, and it's so it's so wild to think. And then I like recently talking to Brian Baker for the podcast, he also was like, "Oh, that's a huge record for us." And it's funny because when you hear it, like obviously the Bad Brains are the most unique band ever, and like the band that revolutionized hardcore and took it to another level. But you can, and that's not to take anything away from this when I say this, but like you can definitely hear the influence that the Viletones would have had on that sound. Like obviously they took it to a different place, but it's still like, oh shit, like that makes sense. Like I can hear that in there.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, so those are that's my first entry to our little record club that we're starting here.
That's great. I love how you start with a Toronto band too, somewhere in there.
Yeah, like and we will eventually get to the 666 and Brother Lynch and the Funky Blue Velvet 45, but
yeah, you mentioned that.
We'll give it a little more. We'll get to that point where I can. We gotta. There's a lot of stuff to get. There's a lot to unpack in that record, so we'll just leave it with these four.
That's great. I'm really liking this.
I think it's fun, Like
by the way,
I'm having a good time. This is exactly, you and me have these conversations on the phone, and now it just feels like bringing our real life conversation into the fake internet world.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess it's my turn.
Yes.
And it's good that you went first, because I think it was great for me to watch you do it, watch you work. So I'm going to lay it out very similar to how you just laid it out.
Okay, absolutely.
And so I've chosen a series as well. And these are the Co-Star, the Record Acting Game series.
It's a game?
Well, they call it a game, but there's no game involved other than trying to keep up with the recording of the actor and slipping in your line. So each one of these come with of course, the record, but each one of these, this is the Vincent Price one, it comes with a script.
Oh.
Someone tore off the cover of this one, but you've got all your lines here, and it tells you what character you're playing. And of course, in the series, the first version came out in '57, and then they released it again in '77. Okay. I believe 77. Yeah. So 20 years later, they re-released all these albums. There's 15 in the series. Now, I have 6, and I've said they're hard to come by, but I've said when I get the whole series, I'm done collecting records. That has just been my quiet thing. I've told it to a couple of people, and then I posted about it recently saying, that's it. Once I get all 15, I'm done. And they were stars back in the 50s, and it was on Co-Star Records, which was a subsidiary of Roulette Records, which was also apparently run by the mob. And so the mob had the clout to lure all these people to do this series. Some of them were over-the-hill actors looking for work, and I think the diamonds in the collection are the Vincent Price. There's Pearl Bailey, Don Amici, if you're a Trading Places fan. A lot of these people were huge stars in the 30s and the 40s, so it's before my time. So I really don't, unless they have a connection to today, I really don't know who they are. There's Arlene Dahl. I have the Arlene Dahl album. The Arlene Dahl, and she does scenes from Casablanca. And Arlene Dahl is the mother of Lorenzo Lamas.
Whoa!
And she was married to Fernando Lamas, and so there's all these little tidbits about these people. The first of the Co-Star series I got a very, very long time ago in a record store on Lakeshore Boulevard in Toronto called Vinyl Museum, Peter Dunn's Vinyl Museum.
One of the 2 locations, right? They had, or maybe they had 3?
They had one on Bloor Street.
On Bloor,
like Bloor and Bathurst.
Yeah.
But the big one was on Lakeshore, and Peter Dunn worked there himself, and he sold me this.
Who's that?
So this is the first co-star album I got. It's starring Maxie Rosenblum, who was a boxer turned actor who is now in a few boxing Hall of Fames in the States.
I guess
And
we know why he was doing a mobbed up record.
yeah, I mean, it's too obvious the connections there. But this was my first one, and it really set me. When I found this record, after this trip to the Vinyl Museum on Lakeshore, actually with someone I think people in Toronto know, Matt Galloway, who probably forgets about our trip together, but we both went to the, the Vinyl Museum together. And so Matt, he came back with a lot of people in Toronto who listen to Matt on the radio now on CBC don't realize just how next level a music fan Matt is. I mean, he keeps it close to the vest. He'll talk about the current, Grammy nominated artists, but Matt goes so deep. So anyways, Matt walked out of there with, I think, 2 or 3 records. And, one of them I remember being an early Dinosaur Jr. album. I walked out of there with this album under my arm, the Boom Boom Washington solo album, Lauryn Hilton Jacobs solo album, and a Batman record, and some other records I can't remember. But it was those 3 records are really what set me off on what I still do to this day, which is finding these kitschy next level records. And it was the Maxie Rosenblum record that set me off. And then since then, I must say and give a shout out to Aaron Keel, because Aaron recently found this for me and sent it to me. And he does the Toronto Record Show in Toronto. And I told Aaron maybe a couple of years ago that I collect these records. So since that time, he's been on the lookout for the Vincent Price one. And so there's other ones. There's Pearl Bailey. There's like I said, Don Amici. There's Cesar Romero has one. And you basically you put the record on, and there's a script that you follow from scenes from novels and plays and movies of their day from the 50s, and you act it out. The only problem is sometimes, I guess, what I found out in doing these scenes is that I'm an overactor.
You've done them?
I've done them a couple of times. It's it's something you just
yeah, you have to.
You just want to collect, and you just want to make sure you have. But to actually go through the script with the actors, I don't know. I think I'm over the hill for that. But the times I've done it, I don't they don't give me enough time to deliver my line before they start saying the next line. There's space.
Yeah.
They say the line, then there's space for you to say your line, and then they say the line. And I realized maybe I'm just an overactor because I think, not finished the line. I have dramatic pauses, and it just doesn't work.
You just got to pitch it down.
Yeah.
Do like a screwed and chopped version of these co-star records.
So these are the records that I have. Yeah. So the reason why I think you can find these, they're around, even though they came out in 57, is because of the re-release of the series in 77 by Roulette. So I think a lot of these are from the second
pressing.
Version. Yeah, the second pressing.
Is there a way to tell? Like, is there like any sort of difference in the? Maybe like a copyright thing at the bottom, maybe, or?
Not that I can find,
Yeah.
but I do note here that this record was produced by Hugo and Luigi, and that's all. That is all that is mentioned by the. So I really that they don't really give you too much to go with, but there's 15 of them in there, and I don't know, these kinds of records I'm a sucker for.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a few of these kinds of records in my collection, but
Do you have there's a big black one, right? Where like you read the script for the interview and they answer the questions for you?
Oh my God. It just sounds like something they would do. But they probably got it from this series. Like Albert Brooks, the comedian, he did a spoof on this series as well. So it made the rounds, but I wish they would reboot it and do it again with contemporary actors as a goof, but who I think I'd be the only one to buy it.
I
So
can now. I want to do a duet record where you leave the other person's part blank, and then you send the lyrics. So you're like singing, and you can like everyone can do a different version of that record at home.
that's an amazing idea. That is an amazing idea.
I think it'd be
And then use the font of
use
this
the
so
fly. Yeah,
you can kind of bridge together where you got the idea.
come
That
yell
is
with me.
amazing.
Yeah, come yell
Oh
with me.
my God. That would be amazing. It would be Judd should do that or
Yeah,
something.
exactly.
Like that would be that would be the logical next thing in the Judd kind of world.
Yeah, well, that's what that's gonna be the first thing to come out of this collaboration that we're doing. We're gonna have this new singing record.
I didn't get to show you the other ones in the collection. So here's Virginia Mayo. Uh, in scenes from the motion picture The Girl from Jones Beach. I don't know these. I don't know these movies, and there's June Havoc, and another one that I recently got in the series. Uh, oh, I don't have it here. It's still in. Oh, it's still on the shelves, but Tallulah Bankhead.
Tallulah
Her
Bankhead.
Yeah, her co-star album is fantastic. Um, so she lived a crazy life. Just personally speaking, Tallulah Bankhead lived a crazy life. She apparently smoked 120 cigarettes a day.
Whoa.
She was addicted to drugs and alcohol, and this is I think in the 30s. And I guess she bragged about her sex life back then, and she created a huge hubbub. But I was most impressed with the 120 cigarettes a day that she smoked, and she fostered children. And she was a television movie star, and she put out one of these records as well. I have it. I wish I could show you. Man, I thought I picked it out here. But anyways, Tallulah Bankhead's
What was she
co-star
in?
album.
Like I know I've seen shit with her in it.
She was just on radio and
Okay.
Broadway and television. Again, a lot of these actors, unless they did something in, the kind of contemporary
Mm-hmm.
world
Mm-hmm.
that I have no connection with. Arlene Dahl, Lorenzo Lamas's mom, who I have her record, is still alive.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, and I believe June Havoc just died in 2010 at the age of 97. So they're still around. I'm sure you can get the story of co-star records out of them,
Yeah.
but a lot of them I don't know the work they did. And apparently, from my research, they were all kind of over the hill already, except for Vincent Price is the diamond of the collection because people still love hilarious House of
Mm-hmm.
Frightenstein, and they know him from Thriller, and of course all the horror movies he starred in, and he's such a great character that lives on.
He kind of strikes me as someone who just would have done anything. Like, will the check clear? Yeah, I'll do it. like,
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, Vincent Price was the one I really wanted,
yeah. Is
but
there
now that I have him, I want the other
is there
ones.
an Orson Welles one? Or like
No, he was too big time
yeah,
for
that's true.
this.
Yeah.
They just had like Basil Rathbone and June Havoc, and I mean I don't know these people. There's Jimmy Rogers though, who was the singer. He wasn't even an actor, and he was signed to Roulette. So if your bosses tell you to do this acting record, you do
You
the
do
acting.
it. Yeah.
You know?
What is Cesar Romero? That's a Joker, right? In the '60s Batman.
I believe so. Yeah, like he was him and Pearl Bailey and Vincent Price. Those were the names and Don Amici because of Trading Places for Me.
Yeah.
But Don Amici also did other things. I believe he was Sherlock Holmes in some series, but I could be wrong. Or was it someone else? Anyways, you kind of know these people, but it wasn't an Orson Welles in the series at
Mm-hmm,
all. Like
mm-hmm.
like someone like a Yul Brynner, or no one like that.
He would have been there eventually, Orson Welles, if that series had come out like in the '70s, as opposed to just being repressed in the '70s, because
Oh,
wasn't he doing fish stick commercials and stuff?
The outtakes are legendary.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Celebrities at Their Worst might be one of the greatest CDs I've ever heard. Do you ever have that?
I don't have it. I probably heard a lot of those
Yeah.
tracks though that have made the rounds.
Yeah.
Barry White, is that part of that?
I think Barry White was
Casey Kasem,
Casey
is
Kasem
that?
one. Yeah. There's the one with Jerry Lewis where someone calls his office and he picks up and the person's like, "Oh, I'm a really good friend of Jerry," and he's like, "Oh, you are really?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, where'd you know him from?" Like pretending like the whole time. And then James Brown's interrogations on there too. The one,
Oh,
"Are you high?" "No, I'm not high." "Yeah, I'm high." It's like, but there that Orson Welles one, the outtakes from that Vistage commercial are incredible.
oh, they're amazing. I love those. I love the. I mean, the Casey Kasem one really made Negative Land. I mean,
Yeah,
if you remember that whole U2 Negative Land debacle, but yeah, just based on Casey Kasem outtakes from America's Top 40, I
yeah.
believe. So, yeah, those are great. William Shatner as well. There's some great outtakes from William Shatner.
Has anyone ever asked you two about that Negative Land thing now? Like, I wonder if it's ever been brought up to them in like modern times.
Yes, they have. And it was one of the guys in Negative Land who pretended to be someone else, and they kind of jumped the edge on a radio interview that I have somewhere. And what Negative Land did recently was put out a lot of files that people could download and create their own mixes, which I did.
Oh, you did?
I have a Negative Land version of the U2 thing that I made myself that maybe I can release. I don't know. I think if Negative Land came after me, that would be hypocritical.
I don't think they would come
So,
after you at all. I'd be
yeah.
worried though about you two still.
Yeah, so I don't use any U2 music
Okay.
in my mix. I used interviews of The Edge and Bono, and that's what I used. And also used, geez, there's something online, and I grabbed it from YouTube, where one of the guys from Negative Land attacks the REM manager for snitching on them. Anyways, there's some kind of crazy
What?
stuff. Yeah, you can find it on YouTube. And the Negative Land guy accuses him of ruining his career. It's great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. There's also this band Paranoid Vision that put out a U2 diss record in defense of Negative Land back in the
Oh,
day.
good.
Yeah, like an anarcho
Oh,
band
great.
from England.
Oh, great. Yeah. I mean, there's so much about you too that I know people love, and I just knowing about the Negative Land is just tainted everything about them for me.
Yeah. No, there was like if you were kind of from like any sort of punk leaning or like outsider music leaning kind of circle, you hated U2 long before they put their record on your iTunes.
Oh, and when that happened, I lost my mind. I did an Instagram post, and people were going, "What's the big deal? It's for free." And it's like, well, Negative Land, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes deep. It runs deep.
It does. It definitely does. And I think that's like, that's that college radio in you coming out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. I mean, Jesus. Yeah.
That's how you know Matt Galloway, right? He used to, didn't he do, he was like a CIA or CKLN,
He was CHRY,
sorry, yeah.
and his show is called Autopsy Turvy.
Oh,
The
man.
Autopsy Turvy Show. And my show was called The Great Big Backward Show, that eventually became the Seminole Load Show.
What a name. I would love to get tapes of these shows. Like that shit's rare because like, unless someone was sitting at home running like a tape deck with their radio, there's no archive of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few shows, but not everything.
I don't think I have a single appearance of myself on Mods and Rockers at all.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I tried taping it, but then it's the tape. I mean, I didn't have any money to keep buying blank tapes, so I couldn't do it. But there is one infamous interview I still have, although the tape is warped now, of Matt Galloway and I interviewing Henry Rollins.
What? Is it?
And that is, if it ever would be released, would be pretty legendary.
He's been ducking me for years on being interviewed, and like for years and years. So if you ever need a forum to release that one, hey, Turned Out a Punk is lacking a Henry Rollins interview.
Well, see, my podcast, I did a Henry Rollins episode.
Yeah, you did one, yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of cornered him, and to his credit, he ended up being, he put up with me. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would be the same way if I was in his position. So fair enough. I mean, thanks to Henry for that. So yeah.
When we played MTV the first time, and shit kind of hit the fan, and people were smashing everything, and Steve Leckie was actually there at that show, and Henry Rollins was like, "Oh yeah, like we'll hang out after the show, blah blah." He left as soon as we started. As soon as everything.
Really? Oh man.
He bailed.
That's too bad. I mean, but he was cool enough with me where I can, go, oh, it was nice of him to, it was good talking to him. But of course, I knew what angle to approach him with, which is the angle of this show, which is records and record collecting and odd and weird and noise records. So, that's how to get him, I think.
Well, maybe we got to get him on this show one day in the future, because we'll have guests on this thing eventually.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
When we run out of records from our own collection, but I don't think that might take a while.
It'll be a few episodes before that. I already am planning episode 2 and 3 in my head.
I think I have my episode 2 record selected. So, I guess we should say where people can find us otherwise.
Okay. Well, I have a podcast, like we mentioned. It's called the Danko Jones Podcast. It's on Spotify and SoundCloud and iTunes. I also have a Regal Beagle podcast about Three's Company, which you've been on, and you've been on the other one too. And that is on only iTunes. And then I'm in a band, and we put out a record called A Rock Supreme. So that's our latest album.
I do a podcast called Turned Out a Punk. I'm at Left for Damian on social media. Turned Out a Punk is like all the places Danko mentioned. I sing in a band called Fucked Up, but we're not doing too much. Oh, we got a bunch of records on eBay right now that are going to COVID relief for people in prisons. So check those auctions out. You can find at Fucked Up for more details, and I'll put it on my socials too. And I guess that's it for me. Is there anything else you want to add, or?
I'm good. This has been a lot of fun. Any chance to talk records with you is fun, and it's a kind of it went down exactly what I thought it was going to go down, which is like a show and tell.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. Is like this was like when I pictured how could this work, and it's like, well, it exactly like this.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I guess see everyone next week on the show.
Can't wait.
All right.